Today we're going to discuss Spiro Mound and the people who live there.
Dan, I've lived in Oklahoma basically my whole life, and I am embarrassed to admit in front of the world and everyone that I've never been out to Spiro. So I've driven by it off of I-40 a couple times, but tell me what we need to know about that.
Well, Spiro Mound is an incredibly important archaeological site. It's the westernmost extension of the Mississippian culture. All right? So Mississippian culture at one time comprised all of the southeastern United States and pushed westward and northward to Kansas City and to Spiro Mounds.
Okay, so Cahokia is one of the mounds that we generally think of as part of the Mississippian mound building culture. How does Spiro compare to a place like Cahokia?
Well, Cahokia is larger in scale, all right, and the archaeologists think that the Cahokia and Spiro may well have played different roles in the larger Mississippian universe.
Okay, so what kind of role do we think that Cahokia or Spiro played?
Well, the conventional thinking is that Cahokia was an administrative center. We have evidence in the archaeological record for the movement of large amounts of goods, raw materials, and people in and out of Cahokia.
It's like a trading center.
Yeah, in some ways, absolutely. Probably more like a redistribution center. All right. So materials are moving in and then being sent out to the various other sites and mound villages of the Mississippian people.
Okay, the first big-shouldered Chicago of the world was a little further south or something.
A little bit, yeah, absolutely. Right. We also have really good evidence of large-scale residence at Cahokia, which we don't have at Spiro.
Okay.
So in some ways, Spiro is much more typical of Mississippian mound sites, in that the majority of people who accessed Spiro probably lived in farming hamlets up to considerable distances from the center itself. And I think the archaeologists are increasingly looking at Spiro as a ceremonial center where people aggregated for specific purposes throughout the year, but probably didn't have a large year-round residence.
Talking about the ceremonial center, we've talked about corn making its way up north. Now, one of the things that we first felt like we needed to figure out was how America got peopled, and we're going to talk some about emergence and origins, but what about the land strait theory? We've come from up north and now we're down south and now we're coming back up north again. How is all that working out in contemporary theorists' heads? Well,
one of the things that I think is important to discuss is the fact that it doesn't necessarily entail the movement of people. It has more to do with the movement of ideas. All right? So moving up out of Mexico was maize agriculture and the religious systems that were designed to support the conditions necessary to have a successful crop, particularly at the scale where you're feeding thousands, if perhaps tens of thousands of people.
Right. Okay, well, how do we find out about this place? It's my understanding that we didn't know about it forever, right?
No, actually, in the history of America, there was a very large debate as to whether or not the indigenous peoples of the Americas were even capable of undertaking the massive works, organizing labor and investing that much energy into building something as large as Cahokia Mound, for example, or the mounds over at Spiro.
Must have been aliens or something.
Exactly, and that was actually one of the prevailing ideas, right?
Yeah, right.
This is how we get Vikings in Oklahoma. I guess sailing their longboats up the Red River.
I would have liked to have seen that.
But more importantly, it's about a complex set of religious practices moving up out of Mexico, and then being employed by the Mississippian people to obtain similar results.
All right, very interesting. There are a lot of stories that we hear folks, southeastern Indian folks, tell about having migrated up themselves from the south. Linguists tell us, no, that couldn't have happened. It was all about kind of coming down across the Lakes region and then down south from the Iroquois. But I'm starting to think maybe that these kinds of trades have been happening for a long time.
They have, and it's I think important to remember that it's very, very difficult to tie the societies and the groups found in the archaeological record to the historically known Native American tribes of today. We're just not capable of making those strong, direct connections.
All right. Well, now that we've kind of got a good intro to what's going on out there at Spiro, what to your mind is the most interesting thing about that place?
Well, I think that Spiro is important for a number of different reasons, and what interests me the most are the earthworks, I have to say. I think that it's just amazing to think about the undertaking, the efforts that were necessary in order for people to create those massive earthworks.
Oh, great. All right, well, I think we'll maybe learn a little bit about those methods.